All right, okay. Welcome, everyone, to the second episode of Sam Gets Schooled, the new podcast you all love already. Love so much, I got one subscriber, so big up for that. This week, you made me laugh, I got to do it again.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, I like it.
No, good. All right, welcome everyone to the second episode of Sam Gets Schooled, the brand new podcast everyone's out there talking about. This week I have with me my friend Ben, who's our guest. Hey, Ben.
Hey.
About 15 minutes ago, Ben revealed to me what he had chosen for the topic of this week's podcast, and before I go into that, I realised that last week, the inaugural episode, I may not have actually explained how this podcast works. So I'm going to go into that now, right?
Yeah, let's hear.
All right. So Sam Gets Schooled is about discovering new topics and trying to find out a little bit more about what goes on inside the world of expertise, which surrounds things which maybe people might not be aware of every single day. I'm a firm believer in that within everything, if you're into it, there's always way more going on than meets the eye. So the idea is to learn a bit more about that by just asking people what they like and what they do and what they like to talk about. But the idea is to make that accessible. I don't get to know what the topic is, so I can't read up about it, which means I get to play the idiot in the situation.
All
right?
It's a great format, man. I like it.
Thanks a lot. So do you want to tell me, I mean, I already know, but everyone who's listening doesn't know what the topic is. Do you want to?
Sure.
Do you want to tell them?
So it is monitoring for musicians when they're playing gigs so that they can hear the music themselves, and it's distinct from the audio that the crowd hears. It's like specifically all the speakers and stuff that are for the band or artists on stage. Yeah,
and that's, I mean, we're specifically talking about this because being an audio monitor engineer is a distinct job from operating like the front of house audience speaker set.
It is true,
and it involves different skills.
Yeah,
well, related skills.
Yeah, very similar, but it's a different sort of like a different market, I guess. One's got the crowd and one's got the band in mind.
Yeah, and so how do we think? I mean, I presume you already know, but why are the two different? Surely the band just want to hear what the audience hear.
Good question. Well, right off the bat, you've got feedback, which is the main reason that I assume it all came about. Because if you just had massive speakers pointing out at the crowd that the band are also listening to, then the mics are going to pick up so much of those speakers that it's just going to be a crazy like, and that's all anyone's going to be able to hear. Yeah. And so they decided at some point to start putting the main speakers for the crowd in front of all the mics, basically, or sort of pointing so that the mics can't hear them too well. And then I assume at some point after that, the musicians were like, well, I can't hear anything. Yeah. And so we're at the solution to that problem, basically.
Yeah, but in that itself, monitors and monitoring engineers constantly have to deal with feedback issues.
Yeah.
Because they're specifically speakers or wedges, as I read, are the good. The specific kind of speaker which are normally used for this.
Yeah.
Are pointing essentially directly at the musicians, and obviously that's where the microphones are as well. So it's a delicate balance.
It is.
And also they might have different artistic requirements. I get the feeling that you could have a standard setup for this kind of stuff, which would work quite well, and everybody able to hear what's going on.
Yeah.
But the issue is that some musicians want to move around, some want to hear different instruments more than others because they care about some instruments more than others.
Yeah.
I also read something about some kind of butt plate or something for drummers for like click tracks. I didn't really get what that was about though.
Right. A butt plate.
Yeah, it was. So,
this is a real musical thing, is it?
Yeah. So essentially, if the drummer needs a click track, which I presume just keeps time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Then, because drums are just like hella loud.
Yeah.
And you don't want to wash out the entire stage with sound that the drummer can hear.
Yeah.
You can attach like this thing to the bottom of his drumming seat,
Right.
and like it like taps the underside of the seat like up towards his bum, so he can feel like the beat, so he doesn't have to like hear it manually.
Oh, that's cool. That's not something that I've heard of.
So so I've immediately blown the expert out of the water.
Yeah, right out the water. You know more than I do.
Yeah, clearly.
I didn't know about butt plates, man. I mean, that's basic.
I don't think they're actually called butt plates, but that's what I read it as.
Oh, okay.
Or at least that's what I can remember it as.
That might be what they're called, though. A lot of stuff in this field is just called the direct thing.
Yeah.
So I'll talk to you a little bit about click tracks, if you like.
If you want, yeah. And also try and weave into that how you know about monitoring and why it's something you have to learn.
Okay, well, I'll start with that and then we can go to click tracks later. That's a bit more specialist.
Yeah.
So I'm a musician. I'm a keyboard player and a singer, and I play gigs all the time in a variety of different venues with different sound systems and stuff.
All right, pipe down.
And I've played in so many different musical situations where what I'm hearing is like terrible.
Yeah.
And so through that, I've come to really appreciate when it sounds good, and I can really enjoy myself on stage, because I'm feeling what an art and what a good job the people involved with the monitoring are doing, and how much difference that makes to me being able to do my job of performing sensibly.
Yeah, so it's not only just your enjoyment, but also your actual performance that is increased and enhanced by being able to hear yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. But it goes so much deeper than just being able to hear yourself. But that is an essential part of it, though. Yeah. But like, there's all sorts of things like if the monitoring is a bit off, and certain people can't hear certain things, then people start to fall out of time with each other, or like singers start singing in the wrong pitch, or whatever. So it's a huge thing, and I've experienced it many a time. Like just today, in fact, just before I came here, I had a rehearsal at my old university.
Yeah.
And the monitoring was so bad, and I was just in such a grumpy mood because it was like all I could hear was drums and trumpet, which is mental. Yeah, so it's something that I'm quite passionate about.
Yeah, I bet because with my wealth of experience with this, I think it's probably, I mean, I know it's an issue for everyone in terms of keeping time.
Yeah.
But particularly to singers, I believe, or like instruments where you can kind of continuously change pitch.
Yeah.
Rather than say something like a keyboard.
Yeah.
Unless you're distinctly trying to do it, you have to play like specific notes.
Yeah. Because
it's very easy to like slip off of, the exact pitch and note that you want to.
Yeah, absolutely it is, yeah.
Yeah. And also, but it also, I mentioned before, it has like a slight artistic effect as well, in that I know from experience that if a singer is a bit shy, or they're not doing so well, they're not singing particularly loud.
Yeah.
That this is another element of it as well, is that as a sound engineer, you have control over like the different amplification levels of the different frequencies across the spectrum.
Yeah.
And there's a few reasons why you might want to do that, but the one that I'm talking about now is that you can boost the singer's monitoring frequencies so that they get more of their own bass, and that makes them feel louder and more confident, which kind of helps them sing better.
Oh, that's really cool. I haven't heard about that one. That makes so much sense, though, yeah.
Yeah, because I think people like shy, quiet voices tend to be a bit like squeaky, or like, whereas people with low kind of like dulcet,
like yourself.
Yeah, just like me. Relaxed voices tend to be lower.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hello?
I'm here.
Oh, hello. Signal went really bad there.
All right, okay.
But
we'll cut that.
I can, yeah, but I can hear you again now.
All right, good.
Just about. It's like it's knocked down a level in the quality spectrum, but it's all right.
All right, okay.
Okay, yeah. Hello.
Are you good to go?
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So you can adjust frequencies to like make people sound differently.
Yeah.
To make them feel better about themselves, or like bass low notes as well tend to wash around a lot. They're not as directional, which means they could be bad culprits for feedback.
Yeah, true that. It's crazy how much difference it can make, actually. Like for me, I would say that I sort of fall into like the shy person who is a singer category.
Yeah.
And for me, I always wear earplugs as well. So my own voice is usually pretty loud to me inside my own head because I can feel it reverberating through my skull. So if they've got monitoring quite healthy from my mic coming back to me, it makes me sing really quietly because I'm like, oh, I don't need to hear that right now.
Yeah.
So it can affect performance quite a lot in a few different ways.
Yeah, and then the high tones as well are, I think, if you... I can't. What's it called? Like, it's not like a spectrograph, is it? When you're talking about like the EQ.
The EQ,
like, yeah. Okay. So boosting the higher frequency as well is what people would like term as like a clear sound.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, within reason. You know, if you go too far, then it becomes sort of like harsh or tinny or scratchy.
Yeah, exactly. So the aim of the game is to get everyone on stage to hear themselves primarily, but then everyone else to a lesser degree.
Yeah, exactly.
And then take into account like artistic choice on top of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Something interesting I read about, but how would that differ, say, from how the front of house would sound?
Oh yeah, great question.
So surely if you're saying, all right, so I want to be able to hear every instrument well.
Yeah.
Surely that's what the audience wants.
Yeah, well, I mean, to a great extent, it sort of is. But say like on a smaller stage, if you've got a full drum kit, then nobody needs any of that in their monitors at all. Like maybe some people might want a little bit of kick, because you can't really hear the low end, because as you say, it's like it washes everywhere.
Yeah.
So you might want a bit of like, sometimes even, just the higher end of the kick so you can hear where it is, so you can lock into it time-wise. But, so like, say, a huge stadium, they might want, like, loads of vocals. If you've got, like, Rihanna or someone, then the vocals are going to be, like, crazily loud.
Yeah.
But for, like, Rihanna herself, she probably wants a bit less of that and a bit more, I would say, drums. A bit more, like, backtrack in her case, probably.
Yeah.
So that she can hear, what's going on and what she's doing and stuff.
Yeah, well, obviously, like, her gob is right next to her ears, so she can probably hear herself relatively well. Maybe not.
There's another thing that's a big factor nowadays, which is in-ear monitoring. Have you come across that?
Yeah, in my research, that well, obviously that sounds hugely advantageous because you can mix something like specifically individually to a person, without any risk of it washing over to anyone else. Yeah,
and also you completely eliminate feedback as a potential.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's quite a thing. I'm personally not a fan of it. It's
what there doesn't sound like a downside.
Right. Well, for one, you got to buy the things.
Okay, fair.
And they're a bit pricey, and also some places don't have the capacity to use them. You got to have the right sort of desk that can utilize them, and some places just don't have that.
Yeah, and I presume they're wireless and stuff.
Yeah. It's that thing that you see on like Big Brother or whatever, where they've got like a little mic pack attached to their belt, and then it runs up the back of their thing, and then the earphones attached to their eardrums or whatever.
Yeah, so I guess that's been around for ages. Just for, it always makes me think like a Big Brother, like live TV, like live news reporters. They've been using that forever, but I guess I'd never really considered it for use in like live audio performances. Yeah,
it's there's a lot of advantages. One thing for me is, and this sort of divides musicians who play on smaller stages, is that it's like, I don't know, I don't like it. I don't like the way it feels and the way it sounds. Like it feels like you're listening to everything through little headphones, basically, because you sort of are.
Well, you are, yeah. And
they're usually really noise cancelling as well. So you lose, for me, I feel like I lose... I don't hear the crowd. I don't hear the vibe. I just hear what it's going to sound like recorded back later, sort of thing.
Yeah. And this is kind of, I can see that, and that's kind of where I think our expertise are gonna. I mean, if you can call what I know expertise differ, because
you're an expert. You're the 15-minute expert.
I'm the 15-minute expert. Because I only look at it from like a technical perspective. Yeah. But you like have to live it.
I have to live it day in, day out. This is my struggle. Yeah, it's I suppose this may be where our things differ. One thing about in-ear monitors compared to wedges, which you were right about that term.
Yeah, wedging.
Yeah, wedging them on the stage there.
Yep.
Is it's very dry, meaning there's no ambience or reverb. Well, there might be some deliberate reverb added in, but you don't hear the room at all unless you've got
I see, yeah.
mics set up to hear the room that are then fed back into the ears, but that doesn't really happen.
Yeah. So obviously, like, the size and shape of the venue that you're performing in, like, is all about, like, the character of the place.
Yeah.
And kind of like what makes some venues better or worse or specialer than others. And that actually feeds into something that I wanted to talk about, because filling a venue, like if you're talking about sound check, right? So you before the performance starts itself, you probably want to get all this stuff we're talking about nailed down, or at least like to the vast majority nailed down.
Yeah.
So you do sound checks, you set up all your monitoring so you can make sure everyone can hear everything, the band's dead happy. But then the issue is that assuming anyone comes to your concert, which, you know, is a big ask, then suddenly you're going to fill the room with people, and people are really good absorbers of sound.
They're great. It's like one of their best assets.
Well, it actually is, because...
Yeah, I mean, in sound terms, it really is a good thing,
Yeah. So, like, auditoriums and, like, theatres and all that kind of stuff, especially those, because they're normally tiered, so you get, like, a huge amount of, like, surface area exposure of people to sound. So that, like, soaks up so much sound in the room. So, again, maybe this is an advantage of in-ear monitoring, but again, like, you know, there's artistic choices there. But when you fill a room with people, suddenly everything's going to sound differently. So sound check might have sounded great, but then once your audience arrive, you might not be able to hear anything. Yeah,
that is possible. It's interesting you should say that, actually, because generally speaking, for the people on the stage, it will sound the same.
Okay.
Because you're not going to get people between you and the wedge that's like 2 feet away from you at your feet, sort of thing.
So I'm entirely wrong.
No, well, I mean, it all factors in though, because you sort of you can't absent yourself from everything that's going down in the room. Like, one thing that happens a lot, right, and this is non-ideal, and everybody knows that it's non-ideal, but it still happens a crazy amount, is there's a sort of like a circuit of the sound, right, and it's like electrical circuit speaking, and front of house gets the priority, and then the monitoring comes later. So one thing that happens to me so often is I'm too quiet in my monitors, and I play a digital keyboard, so I can literally just turn myself up on a knob.
Yeah.
I turn myself up, and then the front of house guy notices that the keys are too loud, so he turns me down, and that brings me back down again in my monitor.
Because you're secondary in the loop.
Exactly, yeah. And so in that regard, people filling a venue and that changing the acoustics, that would affect things if it was that sort of setup where the front of house changes, and then therefore, as a knock-on effect, all the monitors change.
Yeah, because I would have assumed, just like logically, that you would just have 2 separate circuits for that, so that you could both be totally independent.
Yeah, and that is the ideal setup that everybody strives for. But, you know, most of the time, well, not most of the time, but in a lot of the smaller venues, it's all about having fewer staff. So you have the one person operating the sound desk, and they're doing all the monitoring and all the front of house, and often the lights and stuff as well. Yeah.
As a musician, do you feel like engineers or like staff, like, they want to take like control away from you? Because I've had it in the past where musicians are just like, oh, it doesn't sound right, or like, you know, it's just not like thingy enough, and they don't like, you know,
that's helpful.
Like, yeah, I know,
it's just not thingy enough. Could you do something about that monitor guy?
Yeah, well, I know this is bad. I'm going to reveal something that I used to do.
Right.
I used to label up like a fader on the desk, which wasn't actually linked to anything.
Right. And just change it when they ask for stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But like 90% of the time, they'd actually be like, oh yeah, that's way better.
Oh, that's all right. Well, you know, you got to do what you got to do, but that's evil, man.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's funny that. No, as a musician, I don't feel that they're trying to take power away. I feel often like they just don't care. Particularly, I'm often not a particularly important part of the band setup, or, you know, I feel that I am, but for a sound guy, you know, as long as they've got the lead vocals and the drums, you know, they're sort of happy. And like, and if I happen to be off for like I had a gig in Camden recently, right? And apparently it transpired after the event that the guy operating the sound desk was a lighting guy, that they'd called up going like,
good.
oh, we haven't got a sound guy, can you do this thing? And he was like, yes, which he really shouldn't have, because he could not do it. And for the first 3 songs of our half-hour set, so like half the set, my keyboard just wasn't on. So I was there, you know, visually, but auditorily, I might as well have been at home, sort of thing. It's mental.
Right, but you knew this.
I knew, yeah. And that's another thing, right, is usually for the front of house sound guy will be at the back of the room.
Yes.
So the crowd is between you and them if you're on stage.
So he's supposed to be able to hear what the audience is.
Exactly, yeah. But that means that if you want to flag his attention, then everybody in the room is going to see that that's happening. So
okay.
Generally, unless there's something really problematic, you just carry on, which means that, you know, when it's during the first song and then they start to tweak things and whatever, and everything's wildly wrong, everybody just goes with that for the entire set.
Yeah.
It's really not ideal. So what you want, and what does happen in the places when we're more fortunate, is you get a separate person, often with an iPad nowadays, that's all hooked up to the monitoring, and they just linger at the side of the stage. So if you need them, you just sort of like look over covertly and be like, Or, you know, you can do the classic gesturing thing where you point at something and then you point upwards going like, that thing louder.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you never offer them any sort of like, yep, nice one, you've done that, you just carry on.
At what level of professionalism do you reckon that changes, or do you think it's just the same all the way up, like through the industry?
How do you mean? At what point does what change?
So it just feels like a bit wishy-washy, and like the lighting guy saying he could do the sound, and also I feel like that's something to do with like the people who own the venue, or the producer or whomever, like not understanding the difference between what all these like background people do.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you get somebody who's like hiring in their nephew to sort out the sound in the venue, and this guy's experience with sound was that he used to like work at an Odeon or something.
Right. Yeah,
I would say generally like the higher up you get, the better the sound's going to get, because if you play into a venue of 10,000 people, then enough people know what's up that you don't get a terrible bunch of people running the sound. But with regards to smaller venues, with lesser capacities and, you know, less money flowing through the whole operation, it's hit and miss, really. Like, I've played in some places to rooms that have a capacity of like maybe 60 people, and they've got about, 15 people in the audience or whatever.
Yeah.
And the sound is like brilliant. You know, you've got like one woman who's worked behind the same sound desk for like 20 years, and she just absolutely nails it. And every time you go in, it feels great. Where it's just like, oh man, this sounds so good. It's so loud, and it's just like I can hear everything perfectly. And then I've played in some, bigger venues, like this one that I played in Camden. The Camden. Well, maybe I won't say where it was.
Right.
But it's like that's a pretty good gig to get. That's a venue that people in the industries have heard of.
Right.
And that was the one where lighting guy did the sound, and it was feedback all over the place.
Oh, okay.
We had random Londoners heckling us because we haven't started the gig yet because the sound wasn't working. Mental.
Right. Yeah. And then I've had it in the past as well before, where people are getting angry because obviously these kind of things are going on.
Yeah.
And they like heckle you as the performers, even though obviously it's like totally out of your control.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I've also seen it where that's happening, and then the performers will like apologize or like try and like tone the audience down, like regain control.
Yeah.
And then the audio people or the lighting people will like get pissed off at that because they feel like the performers are apologizing on their behalf.
Right. Yeah. It's a funny one, that, because there's that whole world that the average crowd member just doesn't know about, do they?
Yeah, exactly.
Like they've got no idea it's happening.
Yeah, and if you're in the moment and everything's going well, it's that old like idiom, isn't it? Where if everyone's doing their job like perfectly, no one will notice.
Yeah.
Unless it's you and you're like, oh crap, this is great.
Yeah,
but,
no, sure, but the general public.
Yeah, everything should just sound like it was like meant to be that way, and it is that way.
Yeah. And then as soon as something goes wrong, suddenly everybody's an expert on sound technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a lot of that, I'm sure, for these sound people.
Actually, this is something I've been meaning to ask someone like you. I've seen it before in the past that especially guitarists will always want to use their like own amp.
Right.
Right. Even if there's like a room-wide PA system.
Yeah.
And like proper sound engineers there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And even if they play into their own amp and then line out straight out of that.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
So, right. So you're saying, why don't they just plug straight into the PA?
Yeah.
Right. That is just simply about sonic qualities. Because, like, a huge part of what makes an electric guitar sound like an electric guitar is the electric amplifier, courtesy of the 1950s.
Yeah, it's essentially no different from any other guitar, apart from the fact that, it's then amplified and stuff's done to it.
Yeah, well, you mean, are there differences from guitar to guitar tone-wise?
No, I'm sure there are, but most people would say an electric guitar sounds different from an acoustic.
Yeah, right, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, whereas, like, most acoustics to, like, I'm assuming the untrained ear sound roughly the same.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I see where you're coming from there, yeah. And so like at like stadium rock gigs or whatever, the guitarist will be going through like an amp or a number of amps, and then there'll just be mics pointing right at them that are then coming through the PA out front of house sort of thing.
And that's just because the guitarist has decided he that's his sound. Yeah.
Generally speaking, if you put a guitar through a PA, which is public address, the speakers for the front of house for the audience to hear. If anybody's listening and doesn't know, if anybody's listening at all, no, it's right. No, that's harsh to you. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, one does listen.
No, they will. You're only on your second episode. Then it sounds bad basically if you plug a guitar straight into the.
It doesn't sound like a proper guitar.
No, it's very. There's a lot of unwanted treble-y stuff. Like if you have a distortion pedal, which is a classic thing to have in your setup as a rock guitarist or whatever. What an amp does is it sort of like rounds the sound off, particularly towards the top end, so you get a nice like. Whereas if you put it straight into a PA with its beautiful like up to 20,000 hertz spectrum, it's just like
perfectly reproduces.
Yeah, and it sounds crazy. But there are bands that do that, like Tame Impala are a big.
Yeah, they are.
They're a big supporter of DI'd guitars. DIing, that is the term. Sorry, I'm slipping into jargon.
No, it's fine. I know what that is. It's just like...
Hit me.
It's an amplifier, which without the actual amp, it's without like the speaker bit, it just goes between your guitar and the line into the PA system, well, into the desk and then into the PA system.
Exactly.
And just provides a bit of like amplification to get it down the wire.
Yeah. Oh, you've nailed it. And it's and what does it stand for, Mr. Expert?
Digital interface.
No, but good. I like. Right. No, it's. It could have been. It could have been.
There's nothing digital about it, but I couldn't think of anything else.
Yeah. Well, no, I like it. You said it with such conviction as well. Just like, yes, I believe it is digital interface.
Yeah.
It's direct inject box because you're injecting the sound directly into the mixing desk or the PA or whatever, as opposed to going through, an amp or a mic.
All right. Okay. Oh, okay. We're running out of time, but there's one more thing I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Why do singers sound better when there's a little bit of reverb? And I think this is something I learnt about as well, is that singers tend to perform better if there's a bit of reverb.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think, to do with why people sound better, or at least I sound better when I sing in the shower versus anywhere else.
Exactly. I was just going to mention the shower thing. Well, it's totally psychosomatic. Of course, there's nothing about having reverb that makes you sing better inherently. But what it is it's like, to take it to the extreme example, it's like when you're in a huge cave and you sing the tiniest thing and it like splatters everywhere and you can hear that sound for ages and it's like super satisfying. It's basically that, like you sing and you feel like your voice has longevity and power, and it as soon as you finish a note, it carries on, and you can feel that you're having an effect in the world or something. So if you've got absolutely no reverb, it can tend to feel freakishly dry, and you don't hear the notes that you're singing. All you hear are all the little in your own voice, all the little imperfections and stuff. Whereas when you've got reverb, it feels you sing to fill that space that it's emulating.
Yeah.
It's that
it just
sort of idea.
Encourages you, and I imagine the reverb, because obviously reverb is just like echoing, like continuing echoes.
Yeah.
So that's gonna wash over any of like the weird vocal noises or noises,
Yeah.
or like stuff that's going on inside your own head, or it might even like help merge neighboring like notes together.
Yeah, it does. It does all of those things. It absolutely does.
All right, okay. So, thanks. I think we're probably going to have to call it a day there.
Great.
Thanks very much for talking to me about. What did you call it earlier?
Foldback.
Foldback.
Yeah.
Right. Does anyone actually ever call it that?
I think so, yeah. Although I'm not sure that would apply to the in-ear monitors. I think that's specifically like wedges and stuff.
Okay.
So maybe just, monitoring would be the overarching term.
All right. Okay. So it's literally just to do with the fact that like the noise, the signal is folded back, presumably from the desk back to the.
Yeah, I guess so. Sort of you're pushing that sound out forwards, and they fold a bit of it back at you.
All right. Nice.
Yeah.
I guess I just never heard that before.
Yeah, I think it is something of an antiquated term.
All right. Cool. Well, we're going to call it a day there.
Great.
Thanks very much, Ben, for having a chat with me on my second episode of this podcast.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, crap. Yeah, I forgot to... I'm going to put you on the spot here. So normally I ask my guests to choose a song to play out the podcast.
You got access to Spotify and stuff? You'll set up if I name an obscure track?
If you name an obscure track, I'll do my very best. Okay.
Well, we can work it out between us. Yeah, lucky for you, I'm very familiar with your format. Because I'm into what you're doing, and I made the little jingle at the start, little self shout out there.
Yes, yeah.
So the track that I want to play, which I've predetermined, is called Pleasure 101, and it's by this band Cloud. And
are you a member of this band?
I'm not a member of this band, no, but they are friends of mine, and I thought I'd take this opportunity to give them a little shout out. They're a bunch of Norwegian pals of mine.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's the end of our second episode. I hope you join us again, and I hope we hear from Ben again. Thanks a lot, and bye-bye.
Peace.
Thanks again to Ben for coming on the show. If you're interested in hearing more of this tune that Ben's chosen, Pleasure 101 by Cloud, or even if you fancy coming on the show, check out the links below. Thanks again, and bye-bye.